Welcome to Apes and Capes. In this video, I'm going to show you the different ways that you can run JavaScript so that you can get going fast. So, what are the different ways that we can run JavaScript? Well, JavaScript runs in two general ways, in the browser or with Node. Let's start with the browser. If you want to run JavaScript this way, you can load a JavaScript file using a script tag, put JavaScript code between script tags in an HTML document, or you can open up the console by hitting the F12 key or right-clicking the page and selecting Inspect and switching to Console. The console is a REPL terminal. REPL stands for Read, Evaluate, Print, Loop. You can also open up an online coding sandbox site like codepen.io. Let's look at loading a JavaScript file using the script tag. So firstly, you can load a JavaScript file using the script tag. Here are some examples that all load a file named example.js. The source attribute is set to the location of the file to load. It can be an absolute URL, for example, a website from a different host, or it can be a relative URL, a file from some directory on the server where the website was loaded from. There are also a couple commonly used alternate flags you can set to speed up time to first render. While parsing the HTML file and a script tag is reached, if one of these flags is absent, the browser will fetch the file and wait for it to finish before continuing to parse. To avoid preventing the HTML from being parsed, you can use one of these two flags, async or defer. If async is present, the browser will initiate fetching the script immediately, continue parsing, and execute it once it has loaded. Async scripts will execute in the order that they finish loading instead of the order that they are fetched. You can't guarantee the order of execution with async script elements, so keep that in mind. If defer is present, the browser initiates fetching the script immediately, continues parsing, and executes the file after parsing is complete, but before firing the event DOM content loaded. Defer scripts are executed in the order that they're initiated. There are other attributes that can be set, but these are the most commonly used from my experience. Those are the basics. Let's try a quick example. So to run in a browser, let's create a local server. To do that, open VS Code and install the package live server. Create a new file, index.html, type HTML, and select the HTML5 snippet. Within the body, type this code. At the bottom of the page, select Go Live, and it will start a server at port 5500 and open up the current page. Now let's load a script. So we create a file. Let's call it example.js. To keep it simple, let's just log a message. Then we add the script tag to the HTML document. These can be anywhere, although ordering can matter, but are often in the head section. Let's refresh the page, check the console, and there it is. You can also write code directly between script tags. This can be used if the code you're running is short and you don't want to wait for another call to a server. We can use this script code to change the website, but as you can see, where it is determines when it's run. The first script does nothing because it's run before the h1 tag is parsed, and the second script successfully changes the text. There's also a noScript tag that will display its contents if the browser that is parsing the HTML doesn't support JavaScript. Let's add a noScript tag with some content. We refresh and see that it's not displaying. Now, after setting the browser to not run scripts, the code within the noScript tag runs. You can also run JavaScript in the browser console. When focused on the browser, either hit F12 or right-click and select Inspect. If not already highlighted, choose the Console tab. This is where you'll see errors, warnings, and logs displayed, but you can select which you'd like to see. Along with logging, you can also execute JavaScript code. This is called a REPL. This stands for Read, Evaluate, Print, Loop, and can be super useful as a scratchpad or a way of interacting with the web page. The web page is represented in JavaScript using the document object. It's commonly called the DOM, which stands for Document Object Model. You can do all sorts of stuff using the DOM. I'll get into more detail in another video, but as a quick example, let's write a single line that allows us to delete DOM elements by clicking on them. Finally, you can use coding sandbox sites like codepen.io. Here you can write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and see it rendered in real time. You can also share your code easily and see other people's creations. Here's a site. Let's try a search. So here's a great example. You can see that the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are at the top, and its execution that you can interact with is at the bottom. So if you want to play around, create some interesting things and share them, CodePen's a great option, although there are others. Another way to run JavaScript code is with Node. To quote the description from the Node website, Node.js is a free, open-sourced, cross-platform JavaScript runtime environment that lets developers write command line tools and server-side scripts outside of a browser. Another option by the same creator is Deno, but I personally haven't used it. You can run code using Node in a few ways. As a command line REPL, similar to console, as a file runner, by typing node followed by the file's location. It can also accept arguments. And another option is using Quokka, a VS Code extension that uses Node to evaluate code as you type and displays the results. It's very useful, and if you haven't yet, check it out. So to use the Node command line REPL, open a terminal, type node, and hit enter. With this command line, you can do what you can in the console with a couple differences. The document and window objects aren't available, but it has global instead. You can import libraries using require, but in the browser console, require isn't defined. To use Node as a file runner, we can reuse the previous JavaScript file we created called example.js. Let's change the text, and then run it by typing node followed by the file name if it's in the same directory the terminal is pointed at. If it's in a different directory, you can access it using absolute or a relative address. Here are some examples, and they all accomplish the same thing. To use Quokka in VS Code, first install the extension. Then you could create a new file or use an existing JavaScript file. When that file is highlighted in VS Code, hit Ctrl-Shift-P and select Quokka.js start on current file. When you log a variable, it'll display the value in line. In the output, you can also select Reveal in Value Explorer to open up another way to display logged values. It also has more premium features, but I haven't used those. Did you want to learn about the DOM? If you do, then check out the next video. But before you go, if I got something wrong or left out some info that you think is important, tell me in the comments below. Like, comment, and subscribe. Here's a button. Thanks for watching.